Hi everyone, welcome back to Level Up. My name is Priyanka Nair, and today we will be doing the chapter Adventures of Toto from the Grade 9 CBSE English textbook Moments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon to receive a notification every time we post a video. Anyways, moving on, I wanted to correct a small factual error I made in the previous video. Last time we did an English chapter from Grade 9 from the Moments textbook called the Lost Child. However, I did say that it was from the Beehive textbook, so sorry, that was my bad. It is the first chapter from the Moments textbook, and today we'll be doing the second chapter, Adventures of Toto. Before we get started with the chapter, let's learn a little something about the author, like always. I'm sure all of you have heard of him and would have recognized him by the picture on the slide, Ruskin Bond. He was born on 19th May 1934, and he's an Indian author of British descent. Both his parents were Britishers, but he was later on adopted by an Indian family. He's also recognized by the Indian Council for Child Education for his um, growth of children's literature in India. He's an author of several best-selling novels and collections of short stories, essays, and poems. He's also considered to be an icon among Indian writers and children's author, and also a top novelist. He prolifically authored inspiring children's books and was awarded by the Sahitya Academy Award to honor his work of literature. Also, fun fact, he's also an awardee of the Padma Bhushan and the Padma Shri Award. Few examples of very famous books that he has written are The Room on the Roof, A Flight of Pigeons, and The Blue Umbrella. So before we get into the explanation of the chapter in detail, here's a very brief summary so you get a rough idea of the chapter. So The Adventures of Toto is a very, very amusing story written by Ruskin Bond, highlighting the antics of a very mischievous monkey. So the narrator's grandfather was very fond of animals. In fact, he had an own private zoo in his house of various kinds of animals. And that's when he stumbled across this baby monkey from a Tonga driver, and he bought it for 5 rupees, and he named this monkey called Toto. So he wanted Toto because, as I said earlier, he'd already possessed several animals, big and small, such as a squirrel, a pair of rabbits, a goat, and a tortoise. But he didn't have a monkey, and he really liked Toto a lot. However, the narrator's grandmother wouldn't approve of the monkey because she wasn't a very big fan of animals like how her husband was. And in addition to this problem was also the fact that as Toto grew, he started to become very mischievous, and a lot of his antics weren't not noticeable. So now we'll know through the course of this chapter how the narrator's grandmother finally found out about Toto and her reaction towards it, and what happens in the end with Toto. Okay, so now taking a look at the chapter starts first of all with the narrator's grandfather getting possession of Toto, and then the writer gives a full description of Toto. So he had bright, shiny eyes which were full of mischief. His eyebrows were deeply set on his face, he had very thick eyebrows. His teeth were like pearls, and many ladies belonging to the Anglo-Indian community got scared when they saw his teeth, which were displayed when he smiled. And Toto himself would take special delight in scaring these Anglo-Indian ladies. Though his hands were very dry and wrinkled, it felt like it had been dried in the sun like pickled vegetables. He did have a very long tail, so the writer's grandfather thought specifically that the tail added to the good looks of any animal. So as you can notice, he did really like Toto a lot, especially for his tail. And Tutu's tail also acted like a third hand for him. He did a lot of work with his tail more than he did with his hands. It helped him hang from the branch of a tree, and he also used it to lift objects which are beyond his hands' reach. But again, as I said earlier in the previous slide, the narrator's grandmother did not have any interest in animals. She never welcomed the grandfather when he got a new bird or an animal in the house. So, especially the fact that Toto was a monkey and not like a tortoise or a bird that hardly causes any problem, it was decided that Toto's presence would be kept a secret until grandmother was in a good mood. So it was not like they were going to hide it from her forever, but they were waiting for a very good auspicious occasion where the grandmother would be in a good mood. So temporarily, for now, Toto was kept in a little closet opening into the narrator's bedroom wall, and he was tied securely to a peg that was fastened into the wall. Again, a few important points in the slide. Number one, a few questions that could be asked, and I'm sure it's a very important question and probably will be asked in your exam, is how does the narrator give description of Toto? And that entire paragraph that's there in the textbook is extremely important. You should mention obviously his physical appearance, and also stuff like how the grandfather thought that a tail added to the good looks of any animal. That's a very important line. And also about Toto's tail, that is very important. Um, and also how Toto was kept. So this line where I did say that he was kept into a closet that opened um, into the narrator's bedroom, that's also important. Keep that in mind. Anyways, so being very mischievous by nature, Toto started creating problems on the very first day of his arrival in the house. So he removed the entire wallpaper on the narrator's bedroom, like he ruined it, and he pulled out of the peg that he was fastened onto and tore off the narrator's school blazer. So though the grandfather was quite happy and amused to see Toto's performance, everyone in the house who knew of Toto's presence did understand that the grandmother would soon know with the way Toto's progress was going. She's gonna find out anytime soon. Okay, so for this slide, whatever I wanted to explain is pretty much written on the slide, so I'm just gonna read it out. So Toto was now, because he was causing so many troubles where in his earlier residence he tore apart the narrator's wallpaper, he was now transferred to a big cage in the servants' quarters where grandfather's other animals were kept. However, here also he started creating problems because he wouldn't let any of them sleep, and his pernicious and naughty activities were increasing day by day. So when the grandfather had to go to Saharanpur to collect his pension, he carried Toto with him in a big black canvas kit bag. And since there was no opening in the bag to allow his hands or face to come out, he would often jump inside the bag, making the bag like roll about on the floor of the Dehradun railway platform. Now, on reaching Saharanpur, Toto was caught by the ticket collector and classified as a dog. So, again, this point is also important. Make sure to read the textbook thoroughly for this part. And so grandfather had to pay for Toto's fare, though he was a monkey, and he was pretty upset and annoyed about it. Now, Toto was finally accepted by the grandmother. The grandmother came to know about the existence of Toto, and now he was shipped to the stable where Nana, the family donkey, lived. But Toto continued teasing her also, as a result of which they could never become friends. Now, another question that they could ask is what were a few activities or small incidents that proved that Toto loved doing something in particular, and they might give what that is. So again, an answer to that could be number one, Toto loved to have bath in hot water, especially during winters. So one day he nearly succeeded in boiling himself alive by jumping in the large kitchen kettle that had been left on the fire to boil for tea. And in fact, it was the grandmother who came to his rescue and saved him. So again, um, I will link down our website where we are uploading worksheets and possible questions for exams or my exam papers and what questions came from this chapter and so on. So do make sure to check that out. I'll also link the online version of this textbook, so check that out as well if you don't have the physical copy of the textbook with you. And also, our last slide will talk about questions, possible questions. So stay tuned and make sure to keep watching our video for that. Now, Toto continued his antics by tearing clothes to shreds, breaking plates and other utensils, and so on. And so now everyone in the family got fed up with his mischievous activities, and even grandfather, who was so taken like away with him and loved him and got him from Tonga River for a whole some amount of 5 rupees, which is quite a lot in those times. Even he began to seriously question keeping him in the house. So finally, he took a hard decision to get rid of Toto, and he found the Tonga driver that had sold Toto to him and sold it back to him for 3 rupees. And that is how the story ends. So I think um, the main moral of the story is that no matter how much you might like animals, wild animals especially, they have their own home, their own place to be in, and they're not supposed to exist. They don't belong with us. And though Toto himself liked everyone in the family, especially the narrator and the grandfather, he had to go back to his original place and where he came from. So again, the moral of the story is everyone has their own place, their own home, and you cannot take them away for a lot of reasons, environmental, because it's ecological reasons, and just because behavioral changes mostly. Okay, so now moving on to the last slide for this chapter, we'll be taking a look at a few very important questions. So if you do know the answers to these questions, you do have a very good idea of the chapter, so you're good for the exam. But again, as I've said earlier in my previous chapter, English is a subject that is tend to be taken very lightly by a lot of students. However, please refrain from making that mistake. because it is hard to score in English, especially in literature, because there is a proper marking scheme and an answer key to which teachers like refer to when correcting your answers. And that even if one point is missing, you're not going to get full marks for that particular question. So go to your textbook as many times as possible. Be thorough with every word that you're not familiar with in the textbook, because again, it could be asked as 1 mark questions and so on. So let's take a look at a few very important questions that you should know the answer to for the chapter. Number one, in what sense was Toto a pretty monkey? So for this question, you will have to give, as I said earlier, learn that description from the textbook, where they talk about how he had deeply set eyebrows, how he had very pretty eyes that were very mischievous, about his physical appearance, or his hands, how they were dried like pickled vegetables in the sun, and about his tail and how grandfather thought that it added to the beauty of any animal, and so on. So make sure to include every line about every point about his physical appearance in this answer. Next question, why did grandfather hide Toto for some time when he brought him home? So here, as we all know, grandmother wasn't very she didn't really appreciate the idea of grandfather bringing a lot of animals into the house, and she used to create a fuss every time a new animal was brought in. So to avoid that, grandfather decided to hide Toto for some time. So that's the answer, but do make sure to write it not as brief and a little more detailed and using good vocabulary. Next question, why did grandfather desire to take Toto along with him to Dehradun? Because Toto was being very mischievous and creating a lot of problems, like not letting other animals sleep in when he was at the servant quarters, or also the fact that he started tearing curtains and breaking dishes. Grandfather thought it would be best to take Toto away from the house for some time. Next question, how does Toto become a problem to grandfather while going to Saharanpur? So Toto was behaving very well all the while, but while the grandfather was paying for his ticket to the ticket collector, Toto decided to become a little naughty and poke his head out of the black canvas kit that he was being carried in. And so grandfather had to pay for him as well because the ticket collector classified him as a dog. So that's the answer to this. Next question, how did Toto's love for taking bath almost lead to him being half boiled? So the question for this is, I've taken these questions from a variety of websites and also questions from my exam paper as well. So these are very important questions. They may not be framed very well, but you should, like, you get the point of what the question asks for. So in this, you will be talking about how a grandmother had to save him from being almost boiling himself alive in the kettle. And you should also give a little brief introduction about how Toto used to love taking baths during the winters in hot water and so on. And that'll be your answer for this question. Next, why did grandfather give away Toto the monkey? So here you'll talk about how Toto was a wild animal. He was creating a lot of nuisance, not just to the humans, but also to other animals. He wouldn't let anyone sleep. He started becoming very destructive and so on. Next, why does the author say Toto was not the sort of pet we could keep for too long? Here there is this is one of the last lines in the conclusion of the chapter. It is pretty much almost synonymous to the previous question, but you will have, I'm pretty sure this could be a question that could be asked for 4 marks or so. So do learn the answer for all this very well. So that's it for this chapter. Again, make sure to share, subscribe, and like our videos. Turn on your bell notifications to get notified every time we post or publish a video. Make sure to share this video with as many people as possible so you help serve the purpose of our organization. And that's it. Stay tuned for more videos from us. And that's all. Level up, stay ahead of the curve is our motto. So do try and help us serve our purpose for this organization by sharing this video especially. And that's all for this chapter. If you guys want any other chapter that you want to finish off quickly, do let us know in the comment section below. It doesn't necessarily have to be for English. It could be any chapter from grades 8, 9, and 10, which is what we are covering. And that's all. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.